There are prayers that whisper, and there are prayers that bleed. The kind that are born from heartbreak so deep, no words can carry it, only tears can. You've prayed before, haven't you? But have you ever prayed when heaven seemed silent? When everyone else had what you begged God for? That's where Hannah was. She wasn't just barren, she was broken. Every year she walked into the temple, she carried the same emptiness home. And still she came back. Still she prayed. Because sometimes faith isn't about believing God can, it's about trusting Him when He hasn't. The sun hung low over Shiloh, casting long golden rays across the temple courtyard. The wind stirred the dust, lifting faint whispers of old prayers. The aroma of burnt offerings drifted into the air, sacrifices of those whose prayers had already been answered, but not Hannah's. She walked with measured steps, her veil drawn close, the sound of Peninnah's laughter following her like a haunting melody. Peninnah, the woman who had everything Hannah longed for, sons, daughters, a full household. Her children ran circles around her, their shouts filling the temple grounds with joy. And every sound cut Hannah's heart like glass. "Elkanah loves you more," Peninnah had whispered that morning. "But what good is love if God has closed your womb?" Hannah had said nothing. Pain had a way of stealing words before they could find breath. Inside the temple, her husband Elkanah knelt before the altar, his offering laid out with quiet reverence. He looked back at her, eyes soft with concern, the same concern he had shown for years. He didn't understand the silence that sat between her ribs, the ache that no comfort could fill. She smiled faintly, but it was the kind of smile a broken woman wears when she's trying to convince herself that she's fine. She wasn't fine. Hannah sank to her knees near the altar. Her hands trembled as she clutched the fabric of her robe. Her lips moved, but no sound came. She was praying, not with her voice, but with her soul. The temple lights flickered against the bronze altar. Each flame seemed to waver as if listening. "Why me, Lord?" She formed the words silently. "Why bless her and not me? Have I not served you? Have I not come year after year?" Her body shook. The tears she tried to hold back slipped down her cheeks, soaking the dust beneath her. Her chest rose and fell in uneven rhythm, every breath fighting the weight pressing against her spirit. From the corner of the room, Eli the priest watched her. His eyes narrowed, her lips were moving, but no sound came. To him, it looked like drunken rambling. He rose slowly, his robe brushing the stone floor as he approached her. "Woman," Eli said, his voice rough with age and authority, "how long will you stay drunk? Put away your wine." Hannah flinched, her tears halting for a moment. Shame burned across her face. For years she had borne the whispers of others, that her barrenness was a curse, that God had forgotten her. But to be mistaken for a drunkard in God's own house, it was too much. She bowed her head lower. Her voice, when it came, was barely more than a whisper. "No, my Lord, I am not drunk. I have not had wine nor strong drink. I was pouring out my soul before the Lord. I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have spoken out of my great anguish and grief." Her words lingered in the air, trembling with truth. Eli's stern gaze softened. He stepped closer, seeing now not a drunkard, but a woman whose heart had been broken in the waiting. He nodded slowly. He said, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him." Something in Hannah's spirit shifted. Not relief, not yet joy, but a flicker of peace. A fragile, sacred calm that whispered, "He heard you." Hannah rose from the temple floor, her eyes still wet but her steps lighter. The dawn light had begun to creak through the open doors, washing her in soft gold. For the first time in years, her heart did not feel like an empty room. That night, when she returned home with Elkanah, she carried not a child, but a promise. And in time, that promise took form. The months passed, the fields bloomed, and Hannah's body changed. The same people who once pitied her now looked in wonder. God had remembered her. When the child was born, she held him close, tears tracing her smile. His name was Samuel, meaning God has heard. She whispered into the infant's ear, "You are not mine to keep, my son. You are a gift, and one day I will give you back to him who gave you to me." Her heart broke at the thought, but she meant every word, because Hannah had learned something most believers never do. God doesn't just hear the loud prayers, He hears the ones that come from the breaking. There are prayers that move mountains, and there are prayers that move heaven itself. Hannah's did both. If you've been waiting, if you've been praying and hearing only silence, take heart. Heaven's silence doesn't mean God's absence. Sometimes the delay is where faith is refined and miracles are born. Because the God who remembered Hannah will remember you too. The soft light of dawn filtered through the woven curtains. Hannah sat in silence, her tiny hand wrapped around her finger. His breathing was steady, rhythmic, the kind of sound that feels like music to a heart that once only knew silence. Every breath he took was a reminder. God remembered me. Every giggle, every cry, every moment she held him close, it was a living testimony of heaven's mercy. But even joy carries a shadow when it's tied to a promise. Because Hannah had made one, the kind of vow that costs you everything. One evening, as Samuel slept against her chest, Elkanah came to her quietly. His eyes were gentle, but his words were heavy with understanding. "Do you remember what you told the Lord?" he asked. Hannah nodded, tears forming before words could. "I remember. Every day, I remember." She looked down at Samuel, brushing a curl from his forehead. "I promised I would give him back when he was weaned." Elkanah placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we will go to Shiloh together." There was no hesitation in his voice, only reverence for the God who had turned mourning into joy. But in Hannah's heart, a quiet battle raged. How do you give away the very thing that healed your soul? How do you surrender your answered prayer and still call it faith? The road to Shiloh was long and dusty. Hannah walked beside Elkanah, her hands trembling as she carried Samuel. He was still small, wrapped in a linen cloth she had woven herself, threads spun with both joy and sorrow. The temple stood ahead, just as it had years ago. The same stone walls, the same altar, the same scent of burnt offering, but everything felt different now. Last time she had come here, she was empty. This time, she was full. And still, she would walk away empty again, but not in despair, in obedience. When she saw Eli, the old priest, her heart caught in her throat. He had aged, his beard was whiter, his eyes dimmer, but his presence still carried the weight of the sacred. Hannah bowed low before him. "My Lord," she said softly, her voice trembling, "I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him." She looked at Samuel, her eyes filling again. "So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to him." Her voice cracked on the last word. She pressed Samuel's small hand against her heart, then lifted him toward the altar, and as she did, heaven wept with her. Eli took the boy into his arms, lifting him toward the altar. The flames flickered, casting light across Hannah's tear-streaked face.
She fell to her knees and prayed, not with desperation this time, but with gratitude. It was the prayer of a woman who had learned that faith isn't about holding on, it's about letting go. "My heart rejoices in the Lord," she whispered. "My horn is lifted high. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up. He humbles and he exalts. He lifts the poor from the dust and seats them with princes. For the foundations of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world." Her words were not just praise, they were prophecy. Hannah was declaring what every believer must one day learn, that surrender doesn't mean loss, it means trust. As she rose from the temple floor, she looked one last time at Samuel. He was playing near Eli, his laughter echoing softly against the stone walls. Hannah smiled through her tears. She had given her son to God, and in doing so, she had kept her promise. Years passed, and just as God had opened Hannah's womb once, he did it again and again. She bore 3 more sons and 2 daughters. Each child was a reminder, when you give God your best, he multiplies it. But even as her family grew, her heart never stopped returning to Shiloh. Every year she brought Samuel a small robe, one she had made by hand. Each stitch carried a mother's love and a prayer that God's purpose for him would be fulfilled. And it was. The boy she surrendered grew to become the prophet Samuel, the man who would anoint kings, speak God's word to nations, and usher Israel into a new era of faith. Hannah's story is not just about a miracle, it's about a surrendered miracle. She didn't just ask God for something, she trusted him enough to give it back. And that's where heaven moves, not just in our cries for blessing, but in our willingness to let go when God asks. Sometimes God gives you what you prayed for, not so you can hold it tighter, but so you can prove that he holds you. If Hannah's story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Share this message with someone who's waiting, someone who's praying through tears. Remind them that God still hears, he still remembers, and sometimes his greatest miracles begin with surrender.